With our program, which is not going to be too long because I know everyone's enjoying catching up with everyone. But first, I want to start. You'll see in your program, if you can read the really small, tiny print. I had to blow it up on my iPad to be able to see it. Our presentation for tonight. So we're going to start by thanking our outgoing directors. We have two outgoing directors, neither of whom are able to be here tonight because they're both Europeans. But both of them have made tremendous contributions to the Institute. One is Antonio Tullio, who has been involved in all kinds of activities for the Institute, including the UNCITRAL Working Group 5, both on behalf of III and on behalf of the Italian delegation. And the other, of course, is Alan Bloom, who is our immediate past president, who's rolling off our board this year. And so just, they're not here tonight, but maybe they're live streaming. I think they might both be asleep. But I just want to thank those two outgoing directors for all of their service. So if you can just join me with that. And then next, I thanked everybody this morning, but I'll do it again, the organizing committees. And we've gone through so much to get here. We started with our Hong Kong organizing committee that did a tremendous amount of work and had an amazing program plan for 2020. We then pivoted and said, we can put on a conference in 6 months. Shelley Chapman was in there and she said, we can do it. We can put on a conference in 6 months. And she grabbed Rich Levin and they said, we're in there. And we were all ready to put on a conference, and then we got shut down by the pandemic. And then we rolled it on out, and here we are. And I think that Sherry and her team have done an amazing job putting on this hybrid conference, and we've got another great day tomorrow. But I really want to thank the organizing committees. So we have our co-chairs. Shelley and Dennis are not here. And then we have our program committee chairs and our planning chairs and all the members, and everybody's listed in the program. So I just want to ask everybody who's on a planning or organizing committee for both the main conference and the next gens, if you can just stand up, and everybody's name is in the program, and we'll just thank everybody. Also in your programs, you'll see a fabulous list because we didn't have a conference in 2020. You'll see a list of all the new members that have joined us since 2019, and there's quite a number of them. And it's just been an amazing, diverse group that we've had join the Institute since 2019. So I'm going to do the same. If you are on this list of someone who's joined since 2019, if you could just stand up, we'll recognize you. I can't see because of the lights. And then again, we've got two Next Gen classes here. So we've got Next Gen 9 and Next Gen 10, and a number of them obviously from around the country, around the world haven't been able to make it, but we do have some of them here. So if you are Next Gen 9 or 10, please stand up. And then I hope all of you were able to see those amazing presentations today for the 9 prize winners for the III Prize. Our academics do a great job of getting the papers for these upcoming, from the students and upcoming academics or practitioners, whatever they go on to be, but they are so fantastic. And I thought that their presentations today at the conference, if you didn't get to see it, you'll be able to stream it. None of them can be here because they are all overseas, but I do commend to you to watch the presentations if you didn't see them or read the papers. The links are all in your app. So we really had some fantastic prize winners, and they're also listed in your program. So with that, the main event tonight is the presentation of our Founders Award, which is an award that was instituted after we lost Bruce Leonard. And it's an award that is dedicated to someone who has really contributed to the strength of the organization. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve Kargman to present the Founders Award to Chuck Case.
Good evening. I'm delighted to pay tribute to tonight's honoree, former longtime U.S. bankruptcy judge for the District of Arizona, the Honorable Charles G. Case II. Of course, he's better known to all of us simply as Chuck. Chuck has had one of those exemplary careers in our chosen field, a career in which he has seemingly covered all of the possible bases: practicing lawyer, judge, advisor on foreign insolvency law reform, author of numerous articles, speaker at countless professional conferences, law professor at many universities in the U.S. and abroad, and instructor and trainer in insolvency law and commercial law for professionals and judges in innumerable countries around the world. Chuck began his legal career in his hometown of Phoenix, Arizona, and was a partner at two of Phoenix's top law firms. He was then appointed in 1994 as a U.S. bankruptcy judge for the District of Arizona. He had an incredibly distinguished career on the bench in a tenure spanning nearly 2 decades. Chuck was known as a fair-minded, thoughtful judge who was good-humored and patient with the parties before him, but yet was firm when necessary, and who was always practical and made every effort to get the parties to reach a consensual solution. Parties appearing before Chuck knew he would always be extremely well prepared and would always have a thorough understanding of the record and the state of play of the case before him. As one attorney who appeared before Chuck in his courtroom told me, quote, Chuck had an uncanny ability to diffuse contentious situations and was able to appeal to everyone's good judgment and better angels. Chuck was a commanding but calming presence in the courtroom, unquote. Chuck served by designation on the bankruptcy courts of Delaware and, believe it or not, Guam as well. He was also very active in the activities of the Ninth Circuit, having served pro tem on the Bankruptcy Appeals Panel and having headed the Planning Committee for the Ninth Circuit Annual Conference. Importantly, Chuck's career has been defined by giving back. He has made so many contributions to the profession that it is hard to enumerate them, all of them, here. Chuck has been involved in a myriad of professional organizations, and significantly, he has played a leadership role in many of those organizations. For example, Chuck served as president of the National Conference of Bankruptcy Judges, was a longtime board member of the III, and has served as chair of several III committees. More about this later. He served as chair of the 2 main international committees of the American College of Bankruptcy and served as a former director of the Harvard Alumni Association, as well as, probably one of his sentimental favorites, judging from his performance here tonight, was a former director of the Harvard Glee Club Foundation. And finally, after Chuck relocated from Phoenix to idyllic Santa Fe, New Mexico, following his retirement from the bench, Chuck quickly assumed several leadership positions in the Santa Fe Council on International Relations, a very well-respected organization, culminating in his recent service as president of the organization. And again, this is just a few years after he arrived in Santa Fe. I would be absolutely remiss if I did not mention the invaluable work Chuck has done visiting dozens of countries around the world, a list of countries with names that run practically from A to Z, training insolvency practitioners and judges, and advising governments in developing countries and emerging markets on insolvency law and commercial law reform. Chuck has not only had an important impact on the laws of many of these countries, but in carrying out this work, he has also inspired so many professionals and judges around the world. Needless to say, Chuck has received his fair share of prestigious accolades, including, for example, receiving the Outstanding Alumnus Award from his alma mater, the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law at Arizona State University, and being recognized not once, but 3 times as one of the top 10 outstanding bankruptcy judges in the U.S. I have seen up close Chuck's leadership style in action in several organizations, most notably in connection with the III and the American College of Bankruptcy. Just to focus for a moment on the III, roughly a decade ago, Chuck was asked to lead a project to develop a corporate governance blueprint for the III as it matured as an organization and entered its second decade of existence. I had the good fortune of working alongside Chuck on this project, a project that was very important, if not critical, for laying a solid foundation for the III's future. I can therefore personally attest to the fact that Chuck spent countless hours on this project and that he rolled up his sleeves to address the many very difficult and indeed vexing issues raised by this assignment. It was a highly sensitive project. Some might have considered it to be one of the quintessentially thankless tasks, but Chuck carried out this assignment with his usual aplomb, equanimity, diplomacy, perseverance, and not unimportantly, his characteristic good humor. Thanks to Chuck's tireless and painstaking efforts leading this project, the groundwork was laid for a transition that eventually led to the complete overhaul and reform of the then existing corporate governance structure into a new corporate governance model that effectively underpins how the III operates today. I would like to conclude my remarks by mentioning what I consider to be two of the major formative influences in Chuck's career. The first is the Peace Corps. Chuck entered the Peace Corps upon graduating from Harvard, and he spent the bulk of his time in the Peace Corps teaching a number of different subjects in a rural secondary school in Grenada in the West Indies. In the face of the very limited resources and facilities available to them, Chuck and his teachers had to constantly improvise and figure out how they could nevertheless deliver an excellent educational experience for the students despite the serious obstacles they faced. I would venture to say that Chuck's experience in the Peace Corps sparked his now long-standing interest in international affairs and foreign cultures, and later his interest in cross-border insolvency and foreign insolvency law reform. The second major influence, of course, has been his family. Chuck has been blessed to have a loving and supportive family, whether it is his lovely and incredibly accomplished wife, Pam, his two daughters, his parents, or his brothers. So without further ado, please join me in congratulating our very good friend and colleague, Chuck Case, on receiving the Founders Award.
Thanks to all of you. And thank you, Steve, for that wonderful introduction. How nice it would be if it were all true. You know, it's a great honor to receive this award. III has had a special place in my heart since November of 1998, when I first read Bruce's aspirational white paper on his vision for the organization. I found it recently in my cellar. It's remarkable how much of what he dreamed about, in fact, has come to pass. Steve mentioned the corporate governance project that we both worked on, the goal of which was to sustain III as a vibrant organization as it transitioned from its founding stage to long-term viability. The strength of today's III is a testament not only to Bruce's intense dedication to the organization for its first 15 years, but also to the leadership over the past 5 years. So for that, I want to offer my personal thanks to Don Bernstein, Jim Peck, Alan Bloom, and Deborah Grassgreen for your superb service as president, and to all of the executive committee members who supported their efforts, who are too numerous for me to mention. And of course, I also want to offer a special thanks to two gentlemen who are not here tonight, Dick Gitlin and John Barrett, who were instrumental in facilitating the transition in leadership that the project's recommendations envisioned. So how then was it that a judge from a small market such as Arizona would get so involved in international insolvency? It won't surprise you that Arizona was not a hotbed of cross-border cases. Indeed, I personally never had a Chapter 15 case the whole time I was on the bench. And there might have been 2 or 3 on the docket during the course of the time when the law was passed until I retired. So having not handled cross-border cases either on the bench or in practice, and having not been involved in international insolvency committees of the IBA, the ABA, or other similar groups, how did I get here? Well, here's that story in brief. After having been on the bench for about 2.5 years, I realized that one of the job's great benefits was control of your time and the flexibility to do different things. After nearly 20 years of being told where to be, what to do, and when to do it, whether by senior partners in the early years or clients in the later years, but of course always by judges and opposing counsel, I realized that I could expand my horizons, so long as I managed my docket, resolved my cases promptly, and remained responsive to the needs of the bar and the public. You may be surprised to learn that my decision to delve into international work derived in significant part from the influence of my high school French teacher. Emily, that teacher, was a remarkable person. Though childless, she had a huge family that consisted of generations of students whose lives she had touched. The fact is that she didn't teach French at all. She taught France. It was total immersion in French culture. We learned and sang drinking songs, which some of you, I've sung with you in Montmartre, for example, you might remember. Patriotic songs. I knew several verses of La Marseillaise. Traditional songs, love songs. We wrote and put on little plays. We attended Bastille Day celebrations at the home of the local French council. We read Proust, Gide, Molière, Camus, Balzac, Baudelaire, all in the original French. This was in high school. We learned the architecture of Paris, the wines of Bordeaux, the tides of Mont Saint-Michel, and the stained glass of Chartres. Indeed, Emily's influence in expanding my world was one reason I joined the Peace Corps, as Steve mentioned. After college, I spent 2.5 years teaching secondary school in pre-invasion Grenada, at a time when nobody had ever heard of it. And although the island was English-speaking, I did manage to make French one of my subjects. And yes, this all leads back to international insolvency. In 1996, I knew anecdotally that USAID had programs in Central and Eastern Europe directed at helping those countries develop their legal systems, including commercial laws. So let's all think back, those of us who are old enough, to that remarkable time. The Berlin Wall came down in November of 1989. The Soviet-backed regimes in Romania, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Poland all disintegrated over the next several months, leading eventually to the collapse of both the Soviet Union and Yugoslavia in 1991. Suddenly, there were 15 countries where there had been one Soviet Union. Suddenly, there were 6 countries where there had been one Yugoslavia. And none of them had either a market economy or a functioning commercial laws. So with my international juices flowing, I jumped in. I quickly learned there were 4 rules if you wanted to do that work. Rule number 1, make yourself available. This still is applicable today. I contacted a friend who had done some work overseas. He gave my name to someone who was helping put together a team for a 2-week trip to Romania. Now, that someone was Bob Fiedler, by the way, another key player in the founding of III. Almost immediately, I had my first offer. Rule number 2, very important, when you get the first offer, take it. If you don't, the second one will never come. I left 3 weeks later to lecture on Romania's new insolvency law. I had to get up to speed quickly, but I soon learned that no one in Romania understood why an insolvency law was important or why it could be a positive thing for the economy. The message was clear. In a country where the concept of economic failure had been decreed out of existence during the communist era, it was necessary to go back to basics. In short, to remember why we do what we do. We deal so comfortably today with bankruptcy law that we may almost forget why it is a basic building block of a market economy. It's an effective way, efficient way to deal with inevitable economic failure, to return underutilized assets to productive use, to treat creditors fairly and equitably while maximizing value for their benefit, to do so transparently and quickly, and most importantly, to deal with these issues with an eye to the future instead of dwelling on the past. The need to communicate these basic truths was crystallized for me when I was asked by a Romanian TV reporter, "Why did you come all the way here to teach us how to be bankrupt?" My answer was simple. You are bankrupt. I am here to teach you what to do about it. So that initial gig led to dozens of similar ones and eventually to projects in Western Europe, and particularly with my many friends in Italy. I hope some of them are watching tonight, not now, but later. Western Europe, other parts of Western Europe, Asia, South America, and to deep involvement in the World Bank's insolvency law reform efforts. Oh, and yes, I can't forget the other 2 rules. Number 3, this is real work and not a vacation. So work hard and do a good job. And number 4 is simple, shameless self-promotion. On a particularly fun trip to Prague, my then 25-year-old daughter accompanied me. She is well to the left on the political spectrum and always slightly distrusted what I was doing overseas. So she came with me, and she attended everything with me and the other 2 members of the team. On our last night in Prague, I was falling asleep when I heard a voice from the darkness say, "Dad?" "Yes, dear," I said. "I love you, Dad." I thought, how sweet. "I love you too, dear." Smiled to myself and turned over to go to sleep. And then I heard, "And Dad, I don't think you're a cultural imperialist anymore." True story, word for word. You know, it's been somewhat lost to history that Bob Fiedler was also instrumental in the founding of III. Bob and Bruce had different visions of where the organization should focus its efforts, and Bob soon left to pursue his other interests. But his invitation to me to join III's initial steering committee in 1999 is why I'm here tonight. I've greatly enjoyed my 20-plus years with III, serving on the board and co-chairing numerous committees along the way, the one on corporate governance being, I think, the most significant. It's been a wonderful journey, and it's a great pleasure and honor to be here tonight among so many good friends. Thanks again to the III for this award. Thank you.
I'm looking for Mr. Peck. Is he here? There he is. Okay, well, that is a really hard act to follow.
Oh, you're up to it. You'll be fine.
But we're actually a tag team here. We're going to be thanking the president of our organization, for everything she has done for all of us. I'm going to read the prepared remarks, and then Jim is going to extemporize as he usually does. I am sure that our nominated president, who I suspect will get elected tomorrow, what is his name? John Martin would be really pleased to be here to be saying thank you to Deborah. And so what we did was we consulted with him. And we have decided to sort of make an amalgam of his remarks and our own. All the members of the Institute owe Deborah a really deep debt of gratitude for service to the Institute, not only during her presidency, but also as our leader in our strategic planning process, which took place over several years, really following the governance project that Chuck led. Jim, Alan Bloom, and I led the Institute during the transition period following the governance project, and we thought we had weathered a lot of headwinds and successfully put the organization on a path to even greater success. Little did we realize that when the presidency was turned over to Deborah, that she would face even greater challenges than we faced during the transition period. Fortunately, Deborah's stewardship of the Institute during these very troubled times has really been inspired. We had to reschedule the Hong Kong conference multiple times, firstly because of unrest in Hong Kong and then because of COVID. We had to organize on short notice and then cancel a conference in New York. We had to cancel a conference in São Paulo, and then finally we've been able to get together here. This not only required Deborah to navigate all of the unprecedented problems presented by COVID, which were logistical but also financial because of the commitments that we made in each case, but it also required her to turn this into a virtual organization for a year and a half, something that was unprecedented and no one had ever done before. There was no guidebook for what she did. Difficult decisions had to be made, and each one of these was led incredibly ably by Deborah. On top of facing these difficulties, she was the first president to have to implement the new strategic plan, and she had to do this virtually. She breathed life and energy into that plan, and she did this with diligence, persistence, and most of all, infectious enthusiasm that she conveyed to each and every one of us. Until COVID hit, the core committees and the regional committees were already active, and despite COVID, and even though they had to alter their activities, their work has largely continued for the last year and a half. Most recently, Deborah led a revival of the Institute's commitment to Untitled. She presided over the establishment of two quite large committees of members, one for Working Group 2 and one for Working Group 5, who are now actively involved in the Untitled process, which is a continuation, of course, of what we've done in the past, but an even greater commitment. Deborah has also been an outstanding public face for III. She's represented the Institute with distinction on multiple panels at various conferences around the world, and she promoted the use of mediation, which was something that we've been trying to do for years, as a resolution technique in cross-border insolvency. Now, we have both a professional and a fraternal organization. And these two missions, professional and fraternal, especially the fraternal one, have been particularly difficult to keep on track during a global lockdown. We owe Deborah a profound debt for preserving and protecting this organization and successfully furthering both of the missions, and as is evidenced tonight, the fraternal one as well. I'm going to turn things over to Jim, who will only embellish and increase what I've already said, and then we'll have a little toast.
You'll be pleased to know I'll be brief. I endorse everything that Don said, much of which came from John Martin, who is locked down in Australia, at least through November 1st. But I did want to mention to you that I see a transmission of the past to the present to the future through Deborah. One of the remarkable things to me about Chuck's comments earlier, his role in reforming governance here, Don, Alan Bloom, and I and others were involved in the early stages of that transition. Deborah had the hard job. Deborah had to deal with a crisis that nobody could have imagined. What an evening we're having here without masks. How great it is for us all to be together in person, sharing the fraternity, as Don described it, of III. That didn't happen accidentally. It happened as a consequence of a leader who rose to an occasion that nobody could have imagined. We thought we had it hard. Deborah had it so much harder, as did the current executive committee that she worked with. It is tremendously rewarding for me, as someone who is involved in the transition, to see the organization, this is going to seem trivial, with a new logo. There it is. This is an organization that has been reimagined, that is poised to do great works in the future in ways that neither Don nor I can fully imagine. We were the figures of a transition. Deborah was the face of true implementation. And for that, we congratulate her and thank her.
So let's stand up and give a toast to Deborah and give her our thanks. Here, here.
Where is she?
Right there, right in front of you.
I can't see because of the lights. Go ahead.
Sherry, are we done? No. This is where you, this is where you see the emotional side of me, because that's who I am. No, it truly has been my honor, the greatest honor in my career, really, to lead this organization. And I just thank all of you for giving me the opportunity. And truly, Chuck, when I was listening to your remarks, you really are one of the reasons I'm here. You recommended to Bruce that I get involved and that I move up to the board, and so I have that to thank you for. So thank you, and thank everyone. Enjoy the conference tomorrow.